Welcome back to The Quiet Part Out Loud. I'm Nuvyn.
And I'm Alex.
And today we are here with Lara Murphy of Ryan Murphy Construction and President and CEO of the Calgary Wild. Thanks for joining us, Lara.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We're so delighted to have you here, and one of the recipients of the Calgary Influential Women in Business Awards. An honor to be celebrating you and your achievements at this year's event.
Thank you so much. It's just a pleasure, and I'm very excited.
We're excited too. I'm going to start off with a background question. We talk a lot here about squiggly careers, so I'm hoping you can tell us how you got here. Give us a bit of your background story.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm happy to do so. So I originally am from New Brunswick, and at a young age had a very, curious interest in construction and how things were built, and fell in love with history, etc. I also was an athlete and had a lot of energy. So my mom and dad were very smart, and they put a drill and a hammer in my hand and allowed me to funnel that energy into doing different projects around what started, I think, would be our neighborhood and our house. And all the while, I did play soccer as a young girl, and those were like my two passions, I would say. And so as I grew, I think the first time I was 16, and I had a small business called Handy Student Maintenance. And I remember the first transaction with a client where I was able to go and speak to them and do a project, which at the time I think was planting a pine tree and building a fence. But I was so excited around that interaction, and of course making my own money, because I probably went and bought a Esprit sweater or something back in the day. But I fell in love with that kind of client relationship, and then continued to do smaller projects around my neighborhood. I handed out flyers. I went door to door, and just started to build that. So it really became a supplement for my university eventually. And at 16, interestingly enough, I was also recruited by a university to go play in England. And so I was able to go with the squad to England, and had never been to Europe. And so stepping onto soil there over the pond and seeing how old so many of the buildings and the country was, and not really having that experience before, allowed me to fall in love with construction and architecture all over again. So it was like the two worlds met, and then I obviously able to play soccer and travel around to different clubs and hear the women and other girls' stories about their experience. And so it was it really launched me into like that trajectory and path for both. And so went on to play at university, and was also a member of the first women's team in the Canada Games, where soccer was recognized as a sport. It was a really big deal for all of us to have that representation. So I think if you were to meet me before my journey with the Wild, it would probably only have taken 6 minutes before both construction and soccer would come up. And so I just navigated that way. And through school, each summer I had a small construction business, and it helped supplement my scholarship at school, and kind of just fell in love with both. And then at one point, my soccer coach for Canada Games asked me if I ever considered a career in construction. And at that point, it hadn't even crossed my mind, but it definitely planted a seed. And from that, I would say within the next few years, I really started to consider it. And honestly, back in that time, there was really nowhere to go. There was no pro league for soccer in Canada. And so once you were done your competitive career, it was like, okay, now I get my real job. And that's how I began the journey again, into more so into the construction aspect.
So did you always play soccer? Did you play rec league after that? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. I started really young at 6, and then my best friend and I were on the boys team, and she grew to 6'3" and I did not. So she took up volleyball, and I stuck with soccer. You could see these quads. And from there, it was just always a real passion. And then even after my competitive time with the sport, I still played rec league, and it was my life for a long time.
Yeah. You have been a trailblazer in 2 industries, like soccer and the advocacy around getting a team and recognizing the importance of women's sports at a national and global level, and construction in what is a very male-dominated environment. What were some themes that emerged from your experiences as being a trailblazer in these two very different environments?
Yeah, I think one thing that sport taught me was to be able to keep going and getting up over and over again. And I mean, quite frankly, it taught me how to lose. And so when you, at a young age, are working with a group of people that are dedicated and dedicate their lives to the sport on the pitch, and more often than not, you're not necessarily winning, you do create that tenacity, but also a curiosity to keep moving forward. So challenges were something that I just, every day there was a different challenge, whether it was in school, sport, or maybe construction. So I just learned to, I mean, maybe it's a bit of like having the goldfish memory and you just move on and you don't take no for an answer, or you're willing to be curious enough to continue to ask questions and learn and try to integrate yourself into situations where you know you can do it. And for me, because I had so much hands-on experience teaching myself different trades and how to physically do work on the construction side, I knew what I was asking when I was on a job site or trying to go out and pitch a job, whatever the case was. So it lends itself to a different type of expertise. So you gain some respect. And then when you can follow through and communicate to the client, you're able to keep that momentum building. And it was just something that I loved, that whole process. Learning to not take no for an answer and then to continue moving. And I think most entrepreneurs that I know really have that curiousness where they're wanting to learn and understand how things work.
Yeah. Well, I guess in both endeavors, you are an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And in different facets, but that would be a common theme there.
Absolutely.
And you spoke earlier about challenges. Like what has been some of the key challenges that have challenged you on your professional journey?
Yeah. I think that when you own your own company, I mean, you are basically the individual that's making all of the decisions and the calls, and it's very much a singular focus. And then transitioning into sport and a club where we have several partners in the city. We're fortunate to have investors, a board. And so there's a different level of accountability, obviously a roster full of players, and being the first ever professional team in the province for women holds also a different level of weight and accountability and excitement, of course, but it does cause pause. And I think from the construction perspective, we really were under the radar for quite a while, and we're just doing, job after job after job, and knowing that if we succeeded on certain projects, then we would be able to continue to gain more traction. Whereas with the Wild, we were out front and center from day one.
Yes.
And so definitely, I mean, I love it. I love the community. I love being a part of it, but it's a totally different level of exposure, I would say, and also excitement around just so many people involved. And so it's definitely been a bit different, but the same.
And have you come up with some easy, responses, or do you have any even advice for women operating in male-dominated industries to build trust or respond when, there's a nasty comment made or something like that?
Well, I have a few. I probably can't share them necessarily here.
It's okay.
But
This is more than a PG-13 podcast.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely been some interesting instances, I would say, more on the construction side from time to time. I mean, given our name, Ryan Murphy, we get phone calls like, who's Ryan? Where's Ryan? Can I talk to the man? And part of using our last names was very intentional so that it created the perception that it was a male owner. And that was a bit of tongue in cheek. It's a great conversation point that we've been able to go back to every year and continue to do so. But I think, I think with women's sport in particular, it's a new asset. It's a new way in which I think the rest of North America and Europe, for certain, and other parts of the world are recognizing the importance around that what the trajectory is right now. Women's sports growing 4.5 times faster than men's, and I feel at least in our experience, as we've been able to be broadcast on TSN, CBC, ESPN, and YouTube, when you give the platform and that exposure, then people do come. We're playing at McMahon. We've had 46,000 fans come out over the course of our matches last season, bums in seats, not to mention the broadcast. And so you get to have these talking points that you can speak to be able to say, actually, you can challenge. And you know what? As a club, we did X and we've had this many fans. And as a league, there were 300,000 fans that came out. 1.1 million people tuned in to watch the final. And so I always love to arm people with just facts and little snippets that we can go back to and talk about that are reality. And having a season under our belt, we have those now.
Right.
So it's really exciting.
Yeah. And are you seeing growth in other professional women's sports throughout North America?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, my dream would be at some point to sit in a room and be able to say that we have a PWHL team and we have a WNBA team and we still have the Wild FC in Calgary. We don't. Right now, we are the one sole entity as far as pro sports, but I think there's also opportunity in that. There's no playbook, so it's definitely a lot of hard work and figuring out what that looks like. Everything from the sports side to game day, our partnerships, taking care of the players and our business units. So there's a lot of growth, but I'm really excited to see where it goes because we see Vancouver was just awarded a franchise on the PWHL side. And obviously the Tempo are going to Toronto this season, and it'll be the first for the WNBA. So it's really exciting to see the growth. I feel like the US is a bit further ahead, but they also have the population and they've had basically a 20-year head start.
I want to pivot for a moment to the Calgary Influential Women in Business Awards and the focus of like gender diversity and accelerating more women into leadership. What experiences throughout your career, be that like a mentor that you had or someone who inspired you on your journey that now, you know, these awards are given not only for the incredible leadership, but also the impact on community and on paving the way for the next generation of leaders as well.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And not being from Calgary and moving here in 2006, I truly had to start over. I only knew one human, and that human is my wife and who I'm married to. And so I feel like it was almost my secret sauce in allowing me to get out and forcing me to be uncomfortable in different situations and trying to meet people. But I can say one thing about the city that's so incredible is it's just so entrepreneurial. And there were so many people, like there's not really one particular mentor, but there were so many women in particular that when I met them and they learned of the journey where I was and what I was doing, they were so willing to put me in rooms where maybe initially I didn't really belong, but I just I fell in love with it. And I love to learn about everyone's stories. And so many of us are not from Calgary. And so it feels like almost a small town in a big city. And we're almost at 2 million. And that's a bit mind-boggling as, you know, someone that's been here for as long as I have now, but so many different individuals and so many that will be in the room for the awards, there's no question, have just gone above and beyond to make sure that we're connecting one another. And Calgary is amazing for that. You don't have to travel too far to know that I just met with them last week, or I'm working on this project. And there's just so many wonderful interconnections that certainly inspire me. But I've had a lot of people really go out of their way to make sure that they're doing right and putting me where I need to be to make things happen.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to why having gender diversity both in construction and in sport is so important? So, you know, what is the difference that is being made to have more women in construction? I think it's clear, you know, what a trailblazing team the Wild is, but can you speak maybe a little bit more to the construction industry and how women are kind of infiltrating?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I look back at my journey and seeing what growth there has been whether it's a business owner, architects, designers, a tradesperson. I think that there's a great opportunity, and we really need more of that. I mean, you read the news, there's such a lack of skilled workers, and it's not getting better anytime soon. I know when I was in high school and I went to my, the fair for university, the kids that didn't go to university were the ones that maybe couldn't get in, and then they chose trade schools. And I think that perception has basically continued to I think impact choices. And then obviously there's a lot of bias around the industry in and of itself, and what maybe makes up a tradesperson. And so I think it would be a deterrent, and has been a deterrent. But when I think about when we travel, I touched on going to England. I mean, you go to these amazing buildings or churches or bridges and think, wow, like there's thousands of stones here, and someone put those in with their bare hands. Or look at that tile wall when you're in Spain or Portugal. And so I think there's also been a real loss for the appreciation of the craft of what that is, whether you're a tile setter or a carpenter. And so if we can continue to elevate what that is and how important it is to all of us, and whether it's your own home or a space like this, like someone built this. And so trying to really create that excitement around doing something really tangible with your hands. And there's a lot to be said at, like, even if you're painting or doing something, it is a bit therapeutic in a way. But we really, I think over the course of time, I've tried to just build that excitement around being proud to have a craft and what it is. And then if you can gather people that feel the same way, it's actually pretty easy then to have a business where you're trying to enable and help people, because often the individuals that own these small companies are the ones that are doing the work. And so they need to be able to have an outlet from a business perspective, because they're doing the paperwork at night or whatever the case is. So trying to make the path a bit better. But we're seeing so much more with schools like SAIT and NAIT that are getting an uptick on different trades programs. And so I think for women, it's just trying to shake off some of the bias that it's just so male dominated, and it takes time. Yeah.
What gives you hope for the future?
Wow. I know.
That's a big question.
It's a big
It is.
Okay, well, we can narrow it in on either for women in sport, women in your profession. I can only imagine, like the players on the team, and they're so young and probably so enthusiastic about their future.
Absolutely.
And how you've really paved the way for this sport to be received in communities across our country.
Absolutely. I mean, it's exciting. And when you're on the pitch, and whether it's before a match or in the stands, and you see these young women playing their hearts out, and they're fulfilling a dream they never thought would be a reality. And that is incredible. There's so many that never thought they could play pro in Canada. And the last World Cup for women, 32 nations competed. 30 of those 32 nations had professional women's leagues at home, and the two that didn't were Canada and Haiti. And so when you think about on the world stage, you're watching Christine Sinclair or Stephanie Labe or Diana Matheson, and how well the women's national team has done. It's truly incredible. And so obviously the league is long overdue. But for me, it's truly seeing the young fans and being able to see a hero on the pitch. Like, I didn't have a soccer hero that when I was growing up that I could really look to say, like, I'm doing that. That's going to be me one day. And then when you see the stands full at McMahon and they're screaming the players' names, and then after the match, they come down to have their signatures on everything from their player card to, I've seen a croc. I mean, it's amazing. And they're screaming these women's names. And we've got players from New Zealand and Australia and all over the world that are also here experiencing our beautiful country, and American players as well. And little girls that can see themselves in the women and the players on the pitch. And it's truly inspiring. And that does give me hope. It gives me hope that we're creating a place for some underrepresented communities as well. And the goal is to keep young women in sport as long as possible. And we all know the statistics around women that play sport at younger ages, and 94% of corporate C-suite women and in some capacity played a sport. And so that's super powerful, and it's exciting. And I mean, clearly careers are not that long when you're a pro. So how can we corral and use our community partners that are interested in understanding how these players can potentially be part of their organizations one day.
Yeah, let's lean into that stat a little more because there is a lot to unpack there in terms of the correlation between leadership in your profession and your experience playing particularly team sports as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. I think for me, it's how I learned I learned how to build a team and how to, like, as I was a captain of the Canada Games team and then also my university squad. And I was so enthusiastic and excited. And it was a way, I used to write hand letters to each of the players before a game to encourage them and just to see what that excitement can be and how we're able to do something really special together. And I think that really builds a skill set that because people are the most beautiful thing you deal with, but they're also at times the hardest, let's be honest. And so if you can meet people where they're at and listen and be present and understand we've all had a different journey and people have so much going on in their personal lives and work, whatever the case may be, but really try to find the commonality and bring people together to build teams. I think it's magic. And then you're able to do that. It doesn't matter if you're around the boardroom table or if you're, standing on the sidelines watching something or with your business or just with a group of young people to inspire them that they don't just have to take the norm as what it is that they can do for their own future. And it excites me.
Well, we have had the privilege to watch a couple of Wild FC games and it's so high energy and it's such an amazing environment. So congratulations on your win. Thank you for being here. We're so excited to see what happens with the Wild FC and we'll see you at the gala in April.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure.
Yes,
and I look forward to
us.
hosting you both at another match. And I will continue my antic of when we score a goal, I'll run up and down the suite and high five everyone.
I love
it.
it.
Yes, it's very fun. Yeah, I get very
love
excited.
It. Yes.
We'll be there.
And thank you to both of you for this and the opportunity. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, Lara. The Quiet Part Out Loud is produced by Access Connects and brought to you by Oh wait, is there a sponsorship opportunity there? Learn more at accessconnects.com.